Sudhakar, it's quite an honor to have you here today.
Thank you very much for having me here. Thank you.
Absolutely. And, ICF International has been known as sort of the best kept secret in DC. I'm just curious, how many in this audience have ever heard of ICF International? So clearly not enough. And, you guys are really well regarded in the industry, but do you intentionally keep a low profile?
Well, given that we are a public company, all the profits have to go to the investors. So we try and make sure that we don't quite. No, I think that we've tried to get our name out there. I think we'll be doing more in due course. But I think that we have not intentionally tried to keep a low profile. It's just that I think it's better to get known for your work. And I think that people who work with us and clients who traditionally know us, I think know us well. And we've always felt that that's more important than sort of being popularly known. But who knows? We might try and do something different going forward.
And the company's been around for...
Yeah, we've been around for a long time. We've been around since 1969. So it's been, the firm is almost 47 years old. So it's changed its form over the years. Things have changed, they have transformed. People ask me, how can you have been in the same place for this long? I said, well, I didn't have to change my job because the company kept changing. So it's been helpful. I stayed in the same place and did different things.
Right, so that's one of the questions I had. You've been there 33 years, yeah. Is that right? Yeah. What's it like being with a company for 33 years? And how do you stay fresh and motivated and not get too bored?
No, I think that you would get pretty bored if you were doing the same thing for all that time. I think I joined, I was doing traditional consulting, then I started doing management of consulting, then we basically bought ourselves out. I didn't know anything about leveraged buyouts, but it didn't take 6 months and you know everything you need to know if you're in the process. And then we decided to do a leveraged buyout, then we decided to go public. So I think my job changed so dramatically over the years that I think that that kept me fresh. So I think that it's really quite important to make sure that you constantly push your comfort zone. And I think for better or worse, things constantly kept changing while I was there. So I think that it was quite interesting and energizing to do something different. And whenever I did something different, I was like, I'm a trained engineer. I have a graduate degree in engineering and public policy, so I'm not a finance guy, but I found that you could learn the stuff pretty quickly. It wasn't rocket science. So I think that as you get into these things and as you push yourself, you get to know different things in different ways, and I think that sort of kept me going. So it's been quite interesting, and I think that you listen pretty carefully, and I try and do that and sort of learn from what people are telling you and what not telling you. So I think that sort of kept me going.
So can you describe a little bit about ICF International? What are your revenue splits look like between commercial and government? What types of industries are you focused on, and where you're doing your best work?
Sure. So broadly speaking, we have about around 1.14 billion is our overall revenues. About 550 of that is government, and the balance is another $500 million is commercial, and the balance is sort of international, outside North America. So that's basically broadly. So if you think about us, we do a lot of work in, as was pointed out, in health and energy, health, social programs, and energy, broadly speaking. And the other part of our commercial part of the business, we do a lot of work in digital marketing. So we have an agency business, a digital agency. We do a lot of work on marketing services. We do a lot of technology work associated with implementing e-commerce systems and doing stuff over the web, which has become more and more important over the last 4 or 5 years. So basically, those are the two businesses which you should think about. One, the government business, and the other, the digital marketing business, and the energy business, which we do in both public and private. And I think that we like the portfolio. We like the fact that it is well balanced between government and commercial. The government basically keeps us very steady, and the volatility is minimized because of the fact that, I know the government has not been a big growth market over the last 2 or 3 years, but it's been very steady. And I think the commercial business, potentially you can have greater margins and greater growth, but it's also more volatile. So I think that that combination, I think, has kept us in good stead over the last few years.
And what about the verticals that you're in?
The verticals are primarily energy, health, aviation, and digital marketing. Digital marketing is much more of a functionality, but I think those are the four. Yeah.
So you're fighting on a lot of fronts, right?
Right.
So, and you have been integrating some acquisitions, which
Sure,
I'd like to get into in a little while. But how do you compete? Like, what are sort of the core 2 or 3 things that you do that separates you from your competitors? And I'm sure you're competing with a lot of different players in
That's
all these
right.
different segments, right? Government, commercial, and all these verticals. So do you have some sort of guiding principles for how you differentiate
Right.
ICF?
I think in the traditionally in our business, especially in the regulated industries business, as I call it, the government and regulated industries business, we are specialists in specific verticals. So you won't come to us for all things, but if you want anything to do with health, public health broadly defined, energy, which includes electric utilities, both gas and electric broadly defined, aviation, you will come to us because we understand those industries really well. And that differentiates us from all the other folks who have traditionally competed with us, who approach the business as technology companies. So we have found that emphasizing the domain is really very important, because that domain then discriminates your offering from someone else who's competing primarily on a technology basis. Because I think the technology stuff gets commoditized pretty quickly, but the domain understanding is key for clients who want you to do the technology work, but also want you to do it in an effective manner, which will get the results they want to get. And since we understand and speak their language from a domain-specific perspective, they think that they relate to us that much more and that much better. So emphasizing the fact that we understand the domain has been really key for us in terms of our growth. I think that's been really very, very, very important. So for example, when we do work for, say, electric utility, we design, say, an energy efficiency program for them, which is a few $1,000,000. But then what we say is we will stand behind the design of the program and we will implement it for you, which is primarily a technology job. And if you have designed the program and you want to implement the program, and you'll get the results and stand behind your design and get the energy efficiency and get the reductions in energy which you have promised the utility, your credibility goes up with the utility, because they don't have to go look for a technology vendor now to implement this program, which you said will yield 5, 6, 8% reduction in energy use. Now you are willing to stand behind what you said, and that's very powerful. And that project could potentially be $60, $70, $80 million. So I think that the leverage of the domain experience in design to delivery of the program, which primarily consists of technology, marketing, communications, and all the soft and hard stuff associated with implementing any program, is very powerful. And I think we have had great success in doing both the design and the implementation, and doing the full life cycle of the work. You do the advisory work, and then you implement your advice. So we advise, implement, and then improve on the implementation. So the full life cycle of the project: advise, implement, improve. And I think that the important thing in that to understand, at least for us, has been that the implementation work is traditionally much larger in terms of size and much longer in terms of duration. So potentially that much more profitable because of the fact that there's no downtime associated with the implementation work. So I think that life cycle, if you can do the life cycle implementation of a project all the way from advice to improve, I think that's very helpful for a client. And the client basically, once you do a successful implementation, the client is very pleased with you and doesn't want to take any risks, because really, since you've done it once, you can do it again. So I think that also helps the repeatability of that project, and you develop a really good relationship with the client and you keep going.
Excellent. Appreciate that. You mentioned energy and energy efficiency and some of the consulting work you're doing. As I was reading about you and your company, I was really struck by the fact that how ahead of the curve you guys have been regarding eating your own cooking. Can you talk a little bit about some of the green energy initiatives you've done and the carbon neutrality that you've achieved, and how you're continuing to lower your footprint as you guys grow?
Sure. I think that, traditionally we have always thought that if you are advising people on doing something, you should be the first ones to really do it. So we have done a lot of work over the years on environmental issues. And we thought that one of the ways in which we could demonstrate that we really believe in what the advice we're giving you is by making sure that we become carbon neutral. So we were the first professional services firm to get amongst the first 100, and the only professional services firm to get from the United Nations Environment Program a certification for being carbon neutral. The first 100. So we have a little plaque which says that you achieve the carbon neutrality. And every year, we basically look at our carbon footprint across all our buildings across the world in terms of wherever we are, because we are really a professional services firm. So the only thing we really look at is what are the emissions from your commercial buildings. And we try and minimize, do all the technology upgrades we can, work with our landlords to make sure that they can make the buildings energy efficient, and then basically buy high quality carbon credits to neutralize the emissions we have. And I think that helps us discriminate again the fact that we are really quite serious about what we do, and also helps set the company apart from anyone else. Again, the whole intent being not only doing the right thing, but also making sure that your firm gets known for something and is discriminating in terms of just the image of the business. And I think that also helps enormously with the employees who are all looking for mission-driven work. You know, one of the things which we have learned over the years is when you talk about millennials and you talk about work-life balance, millennials are looking to work for companies which have some mission in addition to what they're doing. And I think that that is really quite important to keep in mind. And if you look at our turnover rates over the years, and if you look at how we have managed to keep our people, our turnover rates, which is public information, are around 10.5%, 11%. Now, I think over the last year, they're like 13 or 14. But we are like 6 or 8 percentage points below all our comparables, you know, public company comparables. And I think that's something which we are proud of. And one of the reasons we think that is the case is because of the fact that the employees think they're working for a mission-driven company which does good by the world. In addition to making sure that we do our work and do well by our clients, we also try and do the best we can in terms of just being a good corporate citizen. So I think that has really made a big difference in terms of just the morale of the staff within ICF.
But what I really liked was that it wasn't a top-down initiative, right?
Oh,
you had
yeah.
a group out in California that sort of, how did that all happen? Do you create a culture of,
I think that
you know,
fundamentally, you know, everything happens in starts from California. But I think our San Francisco office had this thing about doing things, not only carbon neutrality, but also recycling. And so I think when we set up a competition, you know, they said, geez, you know, we want to do this. We said, great, you do it, and then we will do a competition across all the offices to see who does the best. And we give awards every so often in terms of who did the best in terms of recycling or in terms of any specific environmental initiative which the employees want to take. So I think that we have managed to do that over the years, and I think that it's also gives our employees something to look forward to. Anything they think about can be implemented across the company if we can work at it, and that also energizes them. So I think that it's, again, one of the reasons why employees stay connected to the overall business is because of the fact that what they say has some traction and goes a long way within the firm.
Switching gears for a moment, I think in the last 10 years you guys have acquired something like 15 or more major acquisitions, right? So, and even before that, the company had been very active in acquiring. And they say, the experts, and there are a few M&A experts in the room, say that the majority of mergers don't work, or acquisitions. What has been your guys' secret to making these acquisitions work?
Yeah, I think we've done, I was counting 18, I think, since we went public. I think we have, you know, when we went public in 2006, and then, so we've been public for about 2 years, President Obama got into, the Obama administration took over. And we had worked on energy and health issues for years. And suddenly everybody on the street thought that we were the Obama stock because of the fact that we worked on energy and health issues and stuff which were priorities for the administration. So we've, and then then over the last 2 or 3 years, we've perhaps not been as fashionable because we've continued to do what we do traditionally. So we have always thought that there are certain things we do well, and we will do them regardless of what the prevailing, popular, what is popular in the prevailing political situation. So I think we have never been very fashionable. So we've always tried to look for companies which potentially can add an adjacency or add depth to our work. So we acquired a bunch of companies in the '06 to '09 time frame, which were primarily government services companies which did public health work, which was not that interesting at that time. And so the valuations we got for those companies were very good, and culturally they were a very good fit for us. In the last 3 or 4 years, you found that every major large company in the area, which does primarily federal work, has been trying to acquire government health companies. And the valuations have gone through the roof. So I think our secret has been that we have been pretty focused on doing what we think is right for our business, regardless of what the rest of the world is thinking. And I think whenever we have acquired things, we acquired things in areas which are not quite as fashionable, but which have great cultural fit to us. So I think that has been one of the keys, I think, to our success is because of the fact that the acquisitions we've done have not been very sexy and hot when we did them, and they're fitted in really well with our business. And we have made sure that when we did the diligence, people whom we were acquiring were keen to join us. I think that's really quite important. We walked away from many where there was not a keenness, we thought, of sort of being part of us. So it's really quite important for the other side to know that there is some synergy, quote unquote, it's an overused word, but there is some synergy, not in terms of anything about cultural synergy between the two companies. And I think that has really been very helpful. So of the 18 acquisitions, I think I would say that 2, fortunately small ones, didn't quite work out. Fortunately, they were small. And there were 2 or 3 which we were very anxious to do, which we didn't get, which fortunately for us didn't happen, because then bad things happened to those little companies. So there was no genius there. Somebody else paid up and got them, and we were lucky not to. So you sometimes thank God that you were not the acquiring entity. But I think that overall, I think that the other thing which we have also done is that we would like them to be physically, in the area. So most of the acquisitions have been sort of in the area. There have been 1 or 2 outside in the Midwest, etc., but those are for other reasons. But I think that physically, if they're also in the area, that also helps enormously in terms of integration. Because I know that in the age of technology, walk-around management is not necessarily something which is fashionable, but it's very helpful if you can do it. So I think that has helped us too, in the sense of making sure that if they're in the area, then the integration goes that much easier, because communication is that much better, especially because you can do walk-around management.
So in theory, cultural fit is great, right? Like, that's what we want. We want someone who wants to get married with us. How do you do that? How do you identify, you have 16 out of 18 deals worked out. I mean, how have you identified, what culture, how do you identify culture fit? What are you looking for?
It's not hard. I mean, we are basically looking for, again, some element of mission orientation, not in terms of, why do you work in public health? Do you work in public health because of the fact that you like working in this area, or do you work in it because of the fact that this is the greatest technology gig you've gotten? So I think most of the time we find that the people who work in the areas in which we have an interest are really, really interested in the area. So people who, we get resumes from people who want to work on utilities or want to work on environmental issues. And I cannot tell you how many people want to work on these specific issues, and how many graduates at the moment want to work on environmental and energy issues. We get thousands of resumes. And if you are interested in the work we do, there's no place we think which, for example, has 2,000 or 2,500 people working on environment and energy issues under one roof. So any aspect of environment or energy which you want to work in, you can work in with us. Other than the national labs, there's not too many other places from a domain-specific, not from a technology-specific area, but from a domain-specific kind of an understanding of, do you want to do in the energy sector, for example, do you want to do supply-side issues? Do you want to do demand-side issues? Do you want to do distributed generation? Do you want to do renewables? All that stuff we can do. So you can work in one aspect, then you can go work in another aspect. So it's a great place for you to come from a domain-specific aspect of doing work in those areas. So I think that's something which has helped us. So I think culturally, we look for people who are similar to us, and I think that's really been the key. We have, over the last 2 or 3 years, done 3 acquisitions, which people will say are culturally quite different from what we have traditionally done, which is primarily we've bought companies on digital marketing services, which we thought was really quite important for us to do for a variety of reasons, including the fact that we didn't necessarily want to be disintermediated in our traditional markets by companies coming in from the outside and saying they have the best technology and they understand how to do this stuff over the web and basically completely blow us away because the client thinks that, oh geez, these guys do the commercially best practices work, and these traditional government guys don't really understand what they're doing, et cetera. So we have done 3 acquisitions where we have now gotten scale. We almost have, purely in commercial markets, we are a digital marketing agency, digital marketing services, where we can do e-commerce, we can do the whole value chain of work, all the way from developing digital strategies to implementing them. Not only for getting your branding up, leveraging your brand, but also potentially helping you doing e-commerce and managing all your properties on the web. So I think that we have done that primarily because of the fact that we found that our traditional industries in health and in government and in the utility industry, there were all kinds of entrants coming in who were saying, geez, forget these government guys, we will do stuff which is much better, faster, cheaper than these guys who have traditionally done it. And we had CIOs join the government who were from Northern California who felt that the whole acquisition process was not quite right and that should be changed. The US Digital Service was set up to change things. So we have tried to stay ahead of the curve and make sure that if you want commercial best practices, we can do it for you too. Because here we are, we've done the e-commerce stuff for ABC company, and look how successful they are. So we can do the transactional stuff associated with the Veterans Administration for you. So because what is e-commerce? E-commerce, you can either buy stuff or you can do transactions over the web. And we can do transactions as well as anyone. And we can implement technologies to do stuff as well. So we've done those 3 acquisitions from a defensive posture, primarily, and offensive, primarily because we didn't want our traditional client set to think that we don't have the latest and greatest understanding of these technologies, and therefore perhaps not lose our edge in our traditional client set. So I think that's been the reason why we've done 3 or 4 over the last 3 or 4 years, which have been culturally quite different, but which now we have consolidated and run slightly separately from our rest of our business.
Interesting. So you're working on a lot of cool and exciting stuff, right? Is there one that really is sort of your pet project, that might be more exciting than the others, of all the things you guys are working on?
I think the most interesting thing for me right now is that we just announced today that we have set up this group called ICF Olson. We did an acquisition of a digital marketing agency headquartered in Minneapolis called Olson. We combined our legacy technology business focused on the commercial sector, digital technology business focused on the commercial sector with them. So now we have a digital marketing services agency called ICF Olson, which has $200 million in revenue and has 800 people who do an enormous amount of work in concert with our technology partners and with brands which are really well known, both from a branding perspective, social media PR perspective, as well as technology implementation perspective. And we again do the whole value chain. We'll do the digital strategy all the way to the implementation of the strategy in every facet. So I think that's very exciting for us because we have some scale, and we think that we can really make a difference in terms of not only our traditional industries, but also given the state of the art in terms of an understanding of how these digital strategies should be implemented. I think that that's our new sort of venture, so to speak. We have some scale in the venture, $200 million and 800 people, but we think that that's a good, strong market in which we think we can really grow going forward. So it's quite exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that does.
How do you see the company in a couple of years? Are you going to continue making acquisitions? Or it sounds like you're betting heavily on digital marketing. Is that you're going to continue doing that, or are you looking at other verticals?
Yeah, I think that we will continue to stick to our knitting, in the sense as I said, the specific domains which we have, we will stick to. We'll continue to make acquisitions both in our traditional business, in the government business, as well as in the digital business. We think that there's enormous opportunity there. Again, for the last 3 or 4 years, as a public company, the government has been out of fashion, but we think that the government is a great place to continue to grow. We are a small player in the overall government space, so we certainly want to do that. We are a small player in the overall digital space, and we certainly want to do that. We do think that we've entered, we have good platforms in both, And we think that the third area, which is really interesting, is the utility for the future. You know, the whole utility industry, as some of you know, based on just your personal experience, when you can now put solar panels on the web and feed the power you generate back to the utility, and in certain states, they have to pay you for it. So there's a whole transformation of the structure of the utility industry going forward in the United States. Because as you can imagine, they have massive assets which they have invested in, and utility assets are invested for 30-year periods. So if suddenly everybody puts solar panels on on their homes and start feeding whatever power they generate back to the grid, and the utility has to pay them for it, there won't be much use for that generation facility they have centrally located, which has cost $4 billion to set up. So they'll have stranded assets, and what do they do with them? So there's a whole industry restructuring going on in the utility of the future, for the utilities in the future, and I think we want to play a major role, both from a technology perspective and as well as an economic perspective in that part of the business. So I think the traditional government business, the utility business, and I think the digital business is going to be the three areas where we are going to continue to grow going forward.
Right, and you guys are public, so you have a whole set of constituencies that you have to answer to that private companies don't have to. If you were private, what would you do differently in terms of managing the business?
You know, I've been asked this question many times, and I've thought about it a little bit. I think that I have my earnings call coming up next week, so it's high on my mind. I mean, I think that there is a certain discipline you get when you're a public company, in the sense you have to generate the profits, and you have to invest whatever monies you have in an efficient way, and make sure you make more money going forward. So there is very little scope for error, and the market really punishes you if you don't quite do what you say you will do, or what you thought would happen given the investment. So I think that there's less flexibility, but I don't know that that's necessarily such a bad thing, because there's more discipline. If you are a private company, and we were a private equity-backed business too before we went public, so I understand the whole PE business. You need the PE guy has to be a tough character to make sure you have the same discipline. The market discipline which you get from reporting every quarter is a tough one. But I think the same discipline, if you could get from the PE guy, that would give you a little more flexibility and perhaps a little longer time frame to do things which you cannot really afford as a public company. So in the public company context, I think the flexibility is limited, the emphasis on growth is that much more, and therefore there's lesser flexibility. I think in a private setting, if you can convince the PE guy or the investor that things will work, you have one or two more chances before you lose credibility.
Have you thought about doing what they do at Amazon, which is sort of set expectations that profits may never come, but not that bad, but something like, hey, we have this long-term strategy, earnings might suffer for a year or so. Is that even possible in today's market, do you think?
I think just to tell you the truth, as a small cap stock, no one would be interested in us if we told them that, profits will come in a year or two. Stick with us. I think we just have to be realistic about our size. I think I have enormous admiration for Jeff Bezos. I mean, that guy's got cojones, as they say. I mean, he's really done a terrific job. And I think that large cap stocks have a whole different world. I think in a small cap stock, if you have to keep interest in the street, and if you keep interest in the analysts who follow you, it'll be very hard for people to follow you if you basically tell them that, look, this is our long-term strategy. I mean, they will follow you when you start making money. It's not going to be, you'll have to have a really patient investor who sticks to you for a long period of time.
Do you feel pressure to make acquisitions because you're public? Or are you just doing it kind of organically? You would have done them anyway.
No, it's not the public, being public, which has, we thought that the best way we needed to get some scale. I think initially we made these acquisitions because I think it's important to get scale in our business. I think the one thing I've found is that as a small company, the resources you have are limited. As you grow, you suddenly find that the resources you have actually are, as you can imagine, there are more resources than you thought you had. And so scale gives you a lot more resources to play with, so to speak. And I think having scale makes you that much more competitive. Because otherwise, if you don't get scale, then you really are not a player. You won't get invited. Say, for example, a utility wants to give you work. Some of these guys are very conservative, so they want your balance sheet. They won't give you the $70 million contract unless you have some scale. So the fact that some of the benefits of being a public company are that you get, you get larger contracts because the fact that everything is out there and there's a certain transparency associated with your financials, and therefore there's a comfort in the procurement departments of larger entities. So I think that that's a big benefit of being a public company. So I think that we haven't done acquisitions primarily because of the fact that we were public. I think I just wanted to make sure that we get scale quickly. And once we are still very small in the overall scheme of things. If you look at our comparables in our peer group, we're one of the smaller companies. So it's not like we've achieved everything we should have. But I think that getting scale is important. So one of the ways in which we thought we'd get scale is to do a bunch of acquisitions and grow and invest. So in the first 6 or 8 years, I think we grew half by acquisitions and half organically. And I think that sort of has served us well because we went from, when we did the leveraged buyout, we were $80 million. So, and then we went public, we were 170, I think. So we've grown 6 times in 8 years. And primarily, that scale has given us more resources, and therefore we have more flexibility to the extent we can get some flexibility in terms of putting the investment dollars in various areas and seeing how that works.
Terrific. We are going to open it up to the audience pretty soon. I have a couple of questions before we do that, but you all may want to think about some things that you want to ask Sudhakar. One question I have is we have a lot of entrepreneurs in the room, a lot of technology, very cool technology. If you stick around, you may see some great stuff. What advice would you give for some of these entrepreneurs in terms of if they want to do business with you, maybe present some of their technology to you, or maybe you could be implementing some of this stuff with your client work right now. How would they go about doing that?
I think that we would welcome opportunities to work with you because I think that anything which can, both in our federal as well as commercial business, which can make our offering that much different from the competition, always is something which we're looking for. We're looking for that tip of the spear. So anything which we can do with you, we'll be pleased to do with you, especially if you have things in the areas in which we work. And I think that we have David Yang and Betsy Hutton here, who are focused, one on the federal sector and one on the commercial sector on technology issues. I think, can you raise your hand, guys? So if you want, please feel free to talk to them. They could certainly help you figure out where your technology will fit in. We're always looking for ways in which we can discriminate what we do from the competition. And I think one of the ways in which we can do that is by having technology which is different, which makes things easier, which is perhaps cheaper for the client, more efficient for the client, whatever. And I think that we'd love to do that. I think the other thing which I would tell entrepreneurs is that, you talk to us. If you talk to me, I can put you in touch with the right person. But I think follow-up is really essential. It's not that we don't want to talk to you. It's just that everybody has lots of things going on. So follow-up is really important. So do not think that we are not interested. We should be more agile. We should be immediately embracing you, etc. It's not that we don't want to do it, but some people tend to perhaps forget. So therefore, following up with us is really also very important.
Are there any big themes, speaking of technology, are there any big themes that ICFI is looking for in terms of bringing to the table for your customers, mobile, cyber, social, big data, or all of it?
I think that, I would say all of it, but I think that the important thing which I would focus in on is anything which you have, if you look at our verticals, if you have ways in which the utility industry can potentially become more efficient, if you have ways in which you can leverage smart grid technologies, or if you have ways in which, social, PR, digital stuff can be different or easier, we're always looking for those things. I think that we're looking for ways in which in the public health arena, you can do population management. So I think that there's a whole vast host of things which we can talk to you about and tell you, where we're always looking for ways in which we can work with you.
One final question before we open it up. It's personal. What do you do for fun to stay sort of passionate about your job? I mean, you're still relatively young, but you've been there 33 years. What do you want to achieve personally from this opportunity, and also just in general, beyond, if there is a beyond?
Yeah, I've been around a long time. I think I just read a lot. It's just interesting for me to read about the stuff we do and broadly as to what everybody else is doing. So I send articles to people at all times of the day and night. Look what so-and-so is doing, look what so-and-so is doing. I think just to make sure that people understand that there's a whole bunch of stuff happening which we should keep track of, and everything is moving fast. So I think that just keeps me that much more interested in what we are doing. And I don't tweet, but I follow, quietly. The people I follow, actually, you get a whole bunch of stuff which you would not otherwise get, which is
Who are some of the more people favorites that you follow, aside from Donald Trump?
Oh, I don't follow that guy. I just follow, there are certain sites which I follow, like Quartz. I don't know whether you know Quartz, QZ.com, and you follow things like, I can look it up, but there's a whole, anything which is of interest, I follow basically a whole bunch of technology sites, Engadget and all these, just for personal stuff. I do follow the traditional news sites because they constantly send stuff which is much more frequent than their traditional, than they would in a normal setting. I follow all kinds of entertainment sites. It just keeps me off. If anything which I read, if it gets me off work and gives me a general sense, it's very relaxing to me. So that's what I do.
Great. One final one. We have a couple friends from Apple here in the room. How do you like your Apple Watch?
I think it's great. We just need to make sure we get rid of the phone, to go along with it. So once it's independent, it'll be even better.
Right. I saw it buzzing a few times while we were talking.
Oh, was
so
it?
is that when you have calls coming in?
No, I switched off my phone, so I don't think it'll do much.
All right, great. We have time for some questions from the audience. Dennis Lucy, please speak up. I know you don't have a problem doing that, but...
You became an independent company in 1999, and you were bought off by Kaiser. Two quick questions. What did you learn from the buyout that you can share with us? And number two, what would you do differently as a result of the buyout?
Yeah, we basically were part of Kaiser. We were part of Kaiser, and we bought ourselves out from under Kaiser. So what did I learn from the buyout? The one thing I learned from the buyout is never get into a business which you don't really know well. Kaiser got into the engineering business. They were a professional services consulting firm. ICF was. We acquired Kaiser in the late 80s. That was an engineering business. The consulting business is run with project management, which is not quite as exact as is required for the A&E business, the architecture and engineering business, the construction business. And I think if you don't understand project management in a real sort of hard-nosed way, you can't run an engineering business. And they made a huge mistake in buying an engineering business and running it like a consulting firm. It doesn't work. So, one of the things which you have to understand is that the metrics which you use to judge your business should be the metrics you use to judge any business you acquire. And those metrics should work because those are the metrics you understand. So for us, it is, billability, it is, margins, it is rates. Once you start getting into areas where the profitability is not determined by those things and determined by how you manage your suppliers or how you do procurement, or et cetera, it becomes very, very hard to run that business, especially if you don't know it. And rediscovering and inventing and trying to learn from scratch without hiring the right people to run that business is a big mistake. So that's what I learned from Kaiser. So we've tried to stick to our knitting. We don't get into any businesses which are not professional services businesses. And believe me, I've been asked 100 times, why don't we get into the carbon credits business? Why don't we get into the products business? Why don't we get in, developing products, which is a great business if you have, software products. If you can do software products or you can do software as a service and all that sort of stuff, that's great. We should certainly do it. we cannot do it. We don't understand it. We don't know it. We cannot do it. We have decided to make our living in a tough way, selling knowledge-intensive time on an hourly basis. That is what our firm does. That is what we'll continue to do. We don't want to get into some products business which you have to invest enormous amounts of money, our balance sheet can't take it, the returns will come later. It doesn't work for us. We are uncomfortable with it. So that's one thing which I learned from the Kaiser situation. And from the buyout, the second thing which I learned was that when your division being sold to a private equity buyer, the valuations which the private equity buyer is paying have to be very carefully looked at, because you don't know exactly what costs are what are the total real costs of that division as an independent entity. So the business, when a division is sold by a large company, the profits tend to look much higher than they will be as an independent company.
Another question? Sure.
Good morning. My name is Angel Rich. I'm the founder of the Wealth Factory, which designs financial literacy, education, technology games. I'm curious, as technology continues to advance, how do you foresee virtual at-home care and the implications that might have on the costs of the clients as well as the insurance companies? Do you foresee that insurance premiums may go down as a result of reduction in costs for doctors because they'll be able to see more patients at one time because of computer technology?
Yeah, I'll answer this question because I understand a little bit about the overall healthcare industry, because I'm on the board of Innova, the healthcare system. I certainly think that home healthcare is going to be an enormously important thing, because every healthcare system is trying to make sure that they do as much outreach as they can to ensure that any patient who goes back home after being discharged stays well. Because the incentives set up by the Affordable Care Act are such that if they get readmitted, there's a huge cost to the healthcare system. So making sure that you take your medications, making sure that you are well in your home is really quite important for the healthcare entity itself, which is treating you. And I think that there'll be more and more of home wellness, home healthcare, and major emphasis on taking care of that aspect of healthcare, which currently the healthcare systems tend not to pay attention to once you're discharged. So there will be more and more outreach in ensuring that whatever the healthcare system can do to ensure that you are taking care of yourself at home, they will try and do.
Yes.
Okay, hi, I'm Shelley Fortas, co-founder of Entrepreneurs for Hillary. Today's a big day in Virginia, and as a very great leader in this community here in Northern Virginia, in the area, if you had a chance to ask the next president of the United States anything to advance entrepreneurship and innovation in the region, what would that be?
So if you had a chance to ask the next president of the U.S. a question on how to advance entrepreneurship and innovation, what would that be?
I think cost of education. How can you reduce the cost of education? I think it's unless
There's a free alternative out there. Sorry, that didn't go well. But
So I'm not talking about giving freebies. I'm just saying that there has to be something done to the cost of education. And I think that unless we have a well-educated workforce going forward, we're going to lose our edge. And I think I have a son who's graduating, fortunately, in May from university. And it is hugely expensive to go to school. And I think that it's going to be very tough if we don't make sure that we do something about the cost of education in a sustainable way.
great. Randy?
Sure. Hi, Randy Moulton with Private Access Network. My question is maybe you can help out some of the entrepreneurs in the room. Let's say one of your division heads comes into the CEO's office and says, so we have to upgrade one of our systems. We can go with this 800-pound gorilla over here. We can do business with it for 20, 30 years. Or we can go with this upstart technology company, which we think is better, faster, and cheaper. But haven't been around that long. We only have tens or hundreds of customers. The other guys have thousands and what that conversation might be like as you try to weigh the trade-offs of what you think is the best cheaper or what you probably know is not, but you have a very long-standing relationship with that other company?
Yeah, no, one company comes to mind. I won't take the name, but I think it is tough. It is a tough conversation to have, and you're fighting. It's an uphill fight, because what happens is that the company which you have a long-standing relationship with will cut prices and will add more stuff to their licensing to ensure that they squeeze you out. So the technology really has to be very proven, has to have not necessarily be in hundreds of customers, but we can't be the first one, because that's not our business. We want to make sure that everything works. And I think that it would be great if there are some peer-reviewed articles, or at least for me, which basically by people who are well-known, who give some technical assessment of the technology and say that it's way better than anything else which is out there. I think I would underline peer-reviewed, because you can get all kinds of people to write all kinds of things, but I think and peer-reviewed is really quite important. And I think if it's a technology thing, that would certainly help in establishing the credentials of the technology. So it is a tough battle, and I think that you just have to make sure that the case you make is is watertight. And I think that there are companies who have done a really terrific job of doing that over the years, and have gotten a lot of traction for it. And I can certainly give you examples if you want. But I think that it's really quite important. But it is a tough battle, especially if it is not our core business. And all we want is for stuff to work, because it is very competitive in the technology arena. I've had first-hand experience with that. Yeah.
Yes, we have time for a couple more. Janice? You might have to speak up a little bit.
What was your first entrepreneurial experience? How did you get so good at doing what you do?
I don't know. I think that the funny thing is that I would say my first major entrepreneurial experience was, we suddenly found that this would be strange, but we suddenly found that we were sitting in a place positioned really well for some large federal contracts. 6 of them which were coming out, which was over $600 million. And there was no one else who basically could do as well on those contracts as we could potentially. If we were much smaller as a company, we were like, I think the group I ran was about 180 people. If we could put together all the responses in a way which would be credible, we could win a bulk of these contracts. And that was the first time we basically got everybody together in a room and said, we got to bid all 6 of these. And people thought we were crazy, because our overall business was actually quite small. I mean, it was like, I think maybe $15 or $20 million, and here we were bidding on some $600 million in contracts. But there was no one else who knew the issues really well. These were primarily climate change, energy efficiency contracts being put out by EPA and DOE in the mid-90s. And we won, I think, 4 or 5 out of the 6. And we went from 20 people to 200 people, literally overnight. And it just told you the power of teamwork and the power of making sure that you take a flyer. If you can get everybody together and do it, and also if you can tell the world that no use competing with us, we are so good at this that you'll just waste your money if you compete with us. And that worked too, because people really believe the fact that, oh geez, these guys are so well positioned, they won't. Let's team with them and let's not compete with them. But I think that we had a lot of competition despite that. But I think that it turned out to be a home run, and that was the first time. I mean, it's just a question of making sure that if your gut tells you to do it, and if you can get 10 or 15 of the senior people to sit down and work literally 90 hours a week forever, for like 6 months, you can really get there. So, as I've said, entrepreneurship is making something out of nothing. So this was our version of making something out of nothing.
Got time for one more. The gentleman right here. Do you mind speaking up a little?
Sure. So you mentioned that one of the key benefits for acquisition is getting scale in terms of the big market. But on the flip side, has all of your acquisitions gone perfectly, or if there were cases where things didn't go out perfectly, what did you learn from it, and what are some of the lessons learned you can maybe share with us so that we can?
So some lessons learned from
Yeah.
acquisitions that didn't work out.
Yeah, I think that the lessons learned from acquisition that didn't work out is that you basically have to have, when you do an acquisition, you need to make sure that you do a scenario where bad things happen. And therefore, what is your mitigation strategy if bad things happen? You're buying a company which the owner has all the relationships with the clients. You don't want to do that. You need to see where, if the owner leaves, the owner will always tell you, oh, geez, I'm here for 5 years. And I'm sure they really believe that. But if a year later they find that they just don't want to come into work, they've had a change of heart. I'm tired of dealing with these guys. I'm going to go back home. Turn around, drive back home. What do you do? So I think that doing the scenario where basically you assess who has the customer relationships, what happens if the following 3 people leave, subsequent to the transaction, all that stuff, and what is your mitigation strategy? Whom do you have, whom you trust, whom you can put in there, who can run this business if that person disappears? So that will also make sure that you don't buy a business which you don't know anything about. Because if you don't know anything about the business, and you don't have anyone who knows that business, and that guy who owns it, or the top 3 guys who own it leave, you're really in a bad spot. So I think that those things are really quite important to do the scenario planning associated with, even if you're keeping all the people, or if you're, what happens, what is the backup plan? I think in case bad things happen. So not all our acquisitions have worked out. 2, fortunately for us, which were small ones, did not work out great, primarily because one didn't have great client relationships. And when we came in, we bore the brunt of it. And the diligence, was good but not good enough. So I think the diligence aspect had to be improved the next time. So, diligence is very important. I think buying stuff, I would bid on contracts on a gut. I wouldn't buy things on a gut. I would make sure that you do the diligence and spend whatever money is required on diligence before you do the acquisition, because it really can tell you a lot. And we found that if you do good diligence, what you learned at the diligence stage is pretty consistent with what you learn after you do the transaction.
Thank you, Sudhakar. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom this morning. If we could give it up for Sudhakar.